I've always taken issue with comic books presenting a moral high ground. Like something that I note is that they talk about justice or what is um, right and wrong. Like they have these people that um, are vigilantes. They are not paid by the government, and they run around and they get to pick and choose which crimes that they choose to police. And we, as the viewers, are supposed to see it in that way. And in comics, over the time as they've evolved, they may have shifted into having forms and tones of these conversations, but it is just like the same story of police that we can never quite see them as villainous enough. It will never allow us to actually present them as lame. They are made to be cool. They're made to be right in a way. Even when they are wrong, it's one time. It's a lapse of judgment. It's a bad call. If it's made anything that is evil or malicious, like um, injustice, like DC's injustice, it is saying that the person went on the deep end. They had snapped, and because they snapped with a really good reason. Like anyone would have snapped. Nuking a city and losing your child, that's a reason to snap. It's always a justification. That's it's propaganda. DC Comics is propaganda. All of it is propaganda. Because like a special unit in the police force, you're above the rest. You can't your job and specialty is so important that you can't report to the same um, rules and ethics as regular uniformed police officers. And sometimes they, like Guy Gardner, he was a police officer, and that's what made him. But the more that you recognize just how bad it is, just like it's very apparent that all of these people are not the greatest people. If anything, that their neutrality in things shows that they have a they're morally inept. You think, okay, it's great that they're stopping crime, but Batman has child soldiers. He's literally doing child endangerment. How does anyone recognize that these crimes are done? Like, are we supposed to say Superman stopped a crime because he said he stopped a crime and arrested these people? How do we know that he didn't just um, pick up a random dude and just send him to jail? Superman wouldn't do that. How do we know he got the right person? And there are times in stories where they um, get the wrong person, but it's like a reasonable, like, oh, Clayface, we didn't know. It's like we never actually see the inner workings of how it's done because it is fantasy. That is the problem. It is held by a wall of fantasy. But fantasy is not an excuse. I need to understand how it actually works. I understand that this is supposed to be a realm of fantasy, but if you're going to tell me that this is morally righteous and this is correct, like at least present a strong case within the rules and the statutes of the universe. Like if you're going to invite me to that universe, make me feel like I can actually participate. It sounds like that's the reason why the comics have been lackluster, because they're not supposed to be a critique. They're not supposed to talk about anything. They're supposed to just reinforce your already preconceived notions, things that you've been told to believe. Batman good, Joker bad, and the people are good too. Where it's like the people really don't ever get shown or seen. They're very rarely heard. Um, you can't hear the complaints of people that you don't write. You don't get to see the frustration or the exhaustion. See, what the comics have really done is just and why I most likely why it's most likely backed by U.S. military funding, because when they make these movies, it's supposed to be, hey, look at us, good guy, United States military propaganda, all of that. Why it's so bad is because it doesn't really show the aftermath. It doesn't show when people die. It doesn't show how someone could you could do all of these things and someone will still be rightfully upset with you. Superman, the new Superman movie had came out and I didn't watch it. I haven't watched a lot of DC or Marvel shows in a long time because of the how simplistic the messages are. And I know they're simplistic not because the writers are bad, but because the message is supposed to be simple. Good guys beat the bad guys. Something to make us cheer and clap. But there was a time where the comics were on the nose back then, but they weren't hiding that. And because of the simplistic nature, but the authentic nature of it is what made me really engage. And when I was younger, um, it did talk about subjects that weren't that I was never privy to before. So it was my introduction. But I won't be blinded by nostalgia. Just because it's my first introduction towards it doesn't mean that it was the greatest by any means. A conversation that was had too late, but I showed up to hear it, does not mean that the conversation was right on time. I could have heard it before. I could have heard it in videos, and I could have seen the aftermath of that. These conversations that the Justice League had made. I grew up on the Justice League animated show. I even watched Young Justice and all of those. Huge DC nerd. All of those shows, they had some great writing, great potential, but they always lacked something: humanity. You never get to see how racism really works, what events. Like 9/11 is not talked about. It's it's just presumed. Music would sometimes be like a musical reference, and then someone goes Eminem canon in the DC universe, also in the Marvel universe. Do they switch? Do they coincide? It presents a confusing nature because then if I don't have a basis on, historically where they're at, technologically wise, what the problem is, like why are the thieves even stealing? Because like when I look at Metropolis, for the most part, it's just people walking around just blah blah blah, and then a bad guy shows up and robs a bank, and me like a bad guy that's like a man made out of like bricks or thousand clones, or maybe even a guy that could shoot circles out of his eyes. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. But you never really sit there and ask, why is this guy stealing? Like his body's so mutated at this point that everyone's gonna know where that money came from. Is he gonna like, oh, I'm gonna sell it on the black market? Why? It never goes into why. It just says bad guy does something and Superman or the Justice League has to stop them. When it tries to be deep, it becomes shallow. It doesn't point. It doesn't ever point out the inconsistency, like how Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner, two white guys, somehow or have the strongest will when there are people that by all means have been in torture camps and I think would have it far worse or be able to demonstrate more will. If you just look at Hal Jordan, forget Guy Gardner, Just look at Hal Jordan. He again, I brought this up before, but a pilot, so you have to be educated. He has to make a lot of money. You know, it's like, okay, sure, you might not be billionaire status, but you don't. That's not chump change. And like whatever his circumstance, whatever he's like lost or gained, like he could just live an average life. Like will to keep living, to keep fighting, even when things aren't going your way, and that's the majority of the life. If you said like to any minority, hey, you know, you got to keep living through a racist, a systematic system. That's it's hard. Even um, John Stewart's whole existence is simply that to bring in that representation and to show that will, and that's how his character was introduced, but quickly scrapped because if they actually did talk about that, it would present a lot more questions. So it was a good enough reason to make him a Green Lantern, but no other black people or anyone else who was like harmed by injustice. I don't understand. Like, would Martin Luther King be available to be a Green Lantern? Is it? I know that it probably in the canon there's some sort of explanation. As anything long enough will try to explain why it exists, but even that, it fails to kind of see like the actual just very present nature of this doesn't really make sense. It's like it's one thing to just like, hey, here's a giant floating ring, but to make it honorable or to seem like what they're doing is justified. If you want to make a man fight, monsters, do so. As you can see in like anime, as I'm also a big nerd, Luffy, Goku, a lot of anime protagonists, isekais, they have maybe a flimsy set of justice, but they'll say, "Oh, I want to kill monsters," and it's a little bit more enjoyable because it's like it's not trying to parade itself as honorable and patriotic and justifiable. It's like, no, I just want to do this. I just want to kill monsters, and it's like, thank you. We didn't have to make it cheesy or corny or try to fit that to equal that narrative, because when it goes down towards it, these people aren't really justifiable. Like they're not really using their power to improve lives. They don't really have any goals or ambitions outside of just keeping the status quo. Like you never really see them use their powers for anything other than like maybe that iconic scene of the Flash cleaning up litter really fast and cleans up the entire city. I'm like, that's great. Is the city gonna go back to being trashed again? Like, is it? Are people that just like if you do it once, why is there any issue? Wouldn't that rectify a lot of problems? Wouldn't that be easier for people to go, you know what, now that I don't have the litter and all this trash and we let's make a system so it never gets that dirty again. Thank you, Flash. Um, that could that actually affects a lot of people's lives, and to have someone that can consciously do that in a second and then choose not to do it, at some point you kind of realize with all these superpowered beings, why they keep building and building and building more for our army. Why are the characters continuing to grow? What is the need for this? It's like building a nuclear arsenal and saying, well, Superman's a nuke, but we can't defeat Darkseid, which is Superman, so we need Blue Beetle and Wonder Woman and five different Wonder Girls and the whole Bat family, which also doesn't have powers but can do logistics very well, can backflip. I don't even understand at this point. Which I think it's like trying to justify stockpiling weapons because like we're gonna need everyone. But some people's powers could defeat a lot of people's powers. but they're never fully utilized. They're not really trained properly. And then it just shows like how much they make the threat of the earth, because they're never actually trying to stop this. They're saying they are the danger. Most times Superman causes people to go there to fight him, and then everyone's just affected by that. Like, the aliens keep trying to destroy the earth, and then more and more super powered beings will have to, prevent that. But like, they'll be there and then they'll destroy the earth. It's kind of hard to like understand it. It's like, or they'll say, okay, we're having space missions, but when they fail and someone does come to the earth and destroys cities, it doesn't really show the devastation or the lives lost. It doesn't say what the actual population count. And I would be devastated as a person if every other week there's like a doomsday event. I'm not saying like, oh, there's the prospect of one or there's potential for one. I'm saying actively living in a hellscape and then 5 seconds later we're not. They defeated it. Woo, we made it. Hopefully all these superheroes stay alive and breed so I can continue to hopefully get safety. It just shows a level of elitism, white supremacy. Like, these are naturally born, gifted people, and I need to thank God that they live and they breathe, and I have no thought outside of my own. It never says there's a level of discontentment. A lot of these stories are terrible. Like, Superman's not a good guy in my opinion. He wastes a lot of resource and time on Lois Lane, egomaniac that sits there and does actions and puts everyone in harm for a scoop. Like, she'll go antagonize Lex Luthor and then get kidnapped or go into their base of operations to expose it and tick off the supervillain and make him launch into this monologue and climb a building or use her to provoke Superman to coming to the rescue. And it sounds like, oh, it's all his fault. And yeah, it's right, but why would you provoke him? Like, why would you do something to cause them to snap even further and disregard, other people's lives? Why wouldn't you call the proper authorities? And it's usually because of a thrill or a need, a fix that she has. Like, it doesn't talk about like that dark form of her. It shows her as like powerful, but she never shows like humility or weakness. It's saying, oh, there's the hot fire that's Lois Lane. I'm like, that's not really always good. I guess like for me, all these characteristics, they're portrayed in a positive light, but there's too much suspension for disbelief that a suspension of belief that I must have to in order to engage with these things. Like, forgetting the science of it all. But what does it mean? When does it end? When does someone grow up? A lot of the comics are just engaging in this weird pedophilic kind of behavior where the younger characters aren't allowed to grow older, but they're drawn like they're older, but they're not older. And I'm like, when I was a kid, I used to have like crushes on Starfire and Raven and what's it called, Wonder Girl, like all of the young Justice. But then as I've gotten older, it's weird. Like, I now I can say, hey, these are portrayed as younger adults, but now I'm like, is this how a child's supposed to be? Are they supposed to be capable of handling this plan and the stress and coordination, and they're doing this well? Like I know it's supposed to be allegories, but many times I don't feel like they're children. Yeah, college age, sure. I would say that they're immature, but I don't see them as 14 or 16, which they very much should be. And it goes to show this is a weird fantasy. These shows are playing towards like a weird ageism where you could just say someone's like 13 or 14, but they're not talking about like the puberty, they're not talking about the smell, they're not talking about like the blatant over sexualization, the like just use the training scene of Black Canary and Wally West and or Kid Flash, whatever. If that was me, I had my little friends, my goons with me, we would have been like, fiending. We have a lady in leggings, and we're supposed to be like, yeah, like the worst he said, I'll show you my moves, and that's it. That was the we would have said something so cruel and crude and crass, especially since we're not even in school, and it doesn't even talk about that. Like very occasionally, um, did they ever talk about school in one episode? That's it. That's the relatability. But they don't talk about like the stresses and the pains and the depression and the angstiness. As far as it goes, Young Justice fails in talking about the teenage experience because it's very stagnant. Like these people are saying, "Hey, remove everything else." It's saying, "Hey, these people who are supposed to represent you, they know exactly what they're going to do, and they know exactly what they're going to go into, and they already have this lined up. You don't have your life prepared, don't have it ready." Some could say like, "Oh, well, Robin said he didn't want to do wanted to be Batman anymore." It was like, okay, he didn't want to be Batman, but he still wanted to be a superhero. So it's like, and all he said was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna be Batman," and that was less of a existential crisis and more just like, I don't want to be Batman Junior. I don't want to be Batman 2. Like I gotta find my own path. I'm pretty sure he's gonna still be Batman. I'm gonna be something else. It's like, and then he was like, I'm basically Batman, just with a different name, and I smile a little bit more. That's it. That if I had to look at it, it's a boys' club. It's rich people problems. It's watching someone who already has the time, resources, people believe in them, people that they like who they are, and just watching them just become exactly what they were always destined to be. But I think that fails for the majority of people. I think that it's a look into elitism, but it fails to see like what it's like not being able to get into those positions, not being chosen, not being wanted, wanting to be a hero, but not being able to be a hero like them. Do you ever see a kid who sees that and tries so hard and jumps off of roofs and buildings and makes a fatal mistake and dies from it? Does it talk about um like how that could play to effect? No. Instead, when they had a chance to talk about their teenage influence, they had a social justice. They had a Black Lives Matter. We're all woke, but it doesn't talk about like the negatives. And there's always going to be some sort of negatives. They might wink or nudge or talk about it, but like it goes more in depth. What they did, essentially, why I don't like Young Justice, or what I have is an issue, is that Young Justice, all it did for all 4 seasons is do what it did in season 1, but worse each and every time. It's the masquerading, the um, I can't tell you the truth. I gotta hide my identity. I gotta I gotta lie to my team in order to get this things done. Um, the ends don't justify the means. Yes, they do. Oh man, this is gonna tear the team apart. Oh, we came together at the end. Wow, that's what it was. There and then not to just speak about how many times Halo died. Just like she was the Kenny of just it was not weird, but it just showed that instead of writing good characters and complex story, that's what it's always going to melt down towards. They're going to play to their strengths, picking and showing cameos. But more and more that I watch, um, and I'm not speaking about Marvel too heavy, but that's because like there's nothing really there anymore. Like Marvel's been kind of dead on the morality scale for a long time for me. Um, it I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it. You could watch the movies, but it's just a live action, just cash grab. It's a Disney thing. You could see how it's just white supremacist propaganda, military propaganda. Just um, they'll get a black voice and what's it called? Get a minstrel show or put on this movie blackface where black people are supposed to say something that they would not commonly say. Like no one in the black community would most likely agree with that take as the representation of all black people, or just like it wouldn't really be the most elegant way of having those conversations. And it's clear that they're not truly trying to have this conversation. They're just trying to acknowledge that there's a conversation going on. And they're saying, because I acknowledged it, because I put it in view, I myself am not a bad person. Like if you put I don't know, a rainbow flag on your icon in June, or you put a black fist up, you're somehow absolved of your injustices, your deeds. So I talk mostly about DC because that's really my I guess my bread and butter. But no, yeah. The reason why these shows will never take off or be any better because they can't really talk about the truth, even in the comics. What I've been seeing recently with the whole Batman thing, it's gonna be nice, but it's gonna end. It's like a good case. It'll be just one of those things that won't save it from the eventual drowning because it won't really do anything distinctly different than what it always has. They'll make these characters like buff or a few good moments, but it'd be like the Batman who laughed. That's exactly what it's gonna go to. The Batman who laughed was an interesting concept, but I don't even remember how it ends. And I doubt most people outside the extreme fringes of the comic book realm would remember it too. It didn't really end that bad, so it wasn't like noteworthy enough to discredit it, but it wasn't so great that the people are putting it in the high regards. It's just something. It's like, yeah, I remember the character, the Batman who laughs, more than the end. And heck, I remember when they tried to put like the multiple different, like there's the Superman Batman who laughs and the Flash Batman, like, and then it didn't really even work, and then we just kind of don't talk about it. Like the truth about most of these comics is that it avoids like the truth. That when a good writing doesn't need to have like a full power showcase. That's a touch. Like you can see when things get into their roots. when a person is, you know, complex, when there's a situation that's not easy, and what they say in that time. Like I know Superman can save people, but not just what happens when he can't or when he doesn't. Just seeing when he does save someone, and that's not the end of it. How he can have somebody up in the air and they're fighting and they're scared and they're peeing themselves, and watches someone probably records that, and watch as they get mocked and jeered for being scared, being held up in the air, and they're saying, why would you be scared? Superman was there. Why did you pee yourself? I was scared. There was lasers and everything going on. And just watch as things don't get better. Like, watch as Superman has to figure out, should he make a public statement or not? Should he address this? Can he talk to this person? Is talking to them going to resolve this? Is this situation something that he has to address to all society? Because it's like very clear and apparent that, hey, it's not just like, if he says anything, it's going to be clear that it's this incident that he's addressing. But they don't talk about those things because it makes things go in depth. It's not profitable. It's not like, why sit there and make Batman or Superman do this thing and talk about these things? I think that they make characters to have those one liners, those one points, but they don't really discuss like identity. One of my favorite potential characters was Yora Flo and Simon Baz. I myself am not Hispanic or Brazilian or Middle Eastern, but the potential that these characters had, and just to watch them go into the realm of every other character, the Signal and whatever his name, James Fox, I don't know, or or Batwing. You see them as minority characters, but they're not really people. They're costumes. They're easy to bring in when you need something or something of color. So you cannot say that you're racist, but their background, they're mobs, they're NPCs. They don't say anything that a black person would say. They don't really add any flavor or any distinction. Like, if you could replace any other character with them and their ethnicity doesn't really add anything, just makes white people feel more comfortable with their complacency with racism. Like on a Black History Month, they might show up on a poster, but you don't really have a conversation where every day is a conflict, where Batwing is upset with Batman and what he's doing and what he's not doing and what he could be doing. So I'm sitting there demonstrating how or what or why. It's not presenting arguments or cases. It's not talking about what's currently happening. It's making imaginary false flags, these ghosts, these things that we all could fight together. And if in real life we can have a Godzilla that we could all fight together, it would be nice, but that's not real life. That's not true. And these things are manufactured by someone that is completely evil. Instead of like someone that is like in the human realm. Like, who's the Joker supposed to be? Oh, the Joker's supposed to be all of us. Like, what? He's supposed to be the embodiment of those who have not been acknowledged. It's like, so how do we actually face that? Well, we wait until the Joker makes a giant monster and then we all defeat it with the power of friendship. We all hit the gym and then learn acrobatics. The trouble with the message is it's supposed to get lost because it's like how Batman does all of his tricks. They're off panel, so you never get to see like, hey man, he's not that slick. Like it's funny to put it, but then it gets kind of old where I can't keep glazing him without understanding how this works. Doesn't make sense. And if you want me to treat it like any sort of human or just like recognize it, can we just say he has powers and just like be cool with it, or just hint at it? Can we change his lore? I've seen Batman get thrown into a truck and they'll say that fundamentally changes his character. Yes, it does. It does fundamentally change his character. It makes the situation odd. It adds to his lore. It makes not everything not wrap up into a neat bow. Because like one of the worst things is that he's definitively supposed to be like this, but he can't ever change, and so it becomes stale. If you keep his character like this, I'm like, I've seen Batman do this 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, and every iteration, even this newest one, it's like Batman still is gonna overcome. That's his thing. He just overcomes. He just gets it done. He's not wrong. But it never just tells a story about like, hey, he has all these advantages. He couldn't have had one more. No, he's just a white dude that somehow discovered that he was right when his parents died, and his spree and his brawl and everything is justified. That it doesn't talk about Alfred's enabling or just like anyone else in a rational state. Sometimes it pokes fun, but poking fun is a way to create a hole that can be widened later on to destroy the entire thing. Because if you poke too many holes, nothing holds up. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold weight. Rips apart. And Batman's identity is lackluster at most. Like I don't feel connected towards him. I don't feel like his goal is justified enough. Maybe if he was a kid, maybe if he was a young man, maybe in the beginning, I could see why he's still fighting this hard. But even with one tragedy, even with a life changing, does that justify all that pain in the injury? His parents had died, so his son has to continue that line of work. No, it's not about his parents dying. It's about the city of Gotham, the city that we never see, that he never gets to hear or experience. That I don't think he ever had any interaction with outside of playing a rich dude or beating them up. It's hard to say that he's made those quality connections because he's never been on the streets long enough. Oh, he's seen some bad stuff. He's seen some crime once. We've all seen some crime once. I've seen crime. It doesn't make me want to mask up. It doesn't make me want to join the force. It doesn't make me want to be the elite police officer. In fact, it just, if anything, it's like, what can I do? Can I just donate some money? He could just donate some money. And it probably would fix that problem. At least the initial one that he's talking about. Like, hey, man, just throw $1,000,000 at it. Why spend any of that money on buying a suit of armor, cars, high definition back computers with decrypted codes, and then buy more suits for young individuals if you need to tailor that get exploded and hide all. It's just a lot more work. It doesn't feel like it justifies it. Like, one of the most human things is that we have feelings. But if you're avoiding the conversation of feelings, Batman's not human. He's not what a human would do. He's not the peak. He's absolutely the worst representation of what human is. If one were to watch a man lose his family, and the only way to grieve is to hurt everyone around them, is to spend all of his time training and fighting and dragging others on a crusade, saying it as he's saving everyone. But they all know deep inside it's his parents. Then how is any of them heroes? If you're doing anything, even if you say it's a good act or something pleasant comes from it, and say that you're a good person, but your intent was always for something else, you're not a good person. If I am sitting there, I'm saving your life because I feel guilty for something I've done. That's not a good act. It's simply just a byproduct. Because I'm supposed to care about your life. If I don't, let's say I go into a building and I'm like, I'm doing this for a paycheck. And I go in, I save your life. But I don't care. I'm not, going as hard. I'm not trying to save you as long. You might be a little burned. But if there's a sense of urgency, if you care about my life, you're going to check. You're going to make sure to try to find me as quick as you can. But your indifference to my problems, my needs, my situations. If you don't see me as someone or a human and see me as myself, but as a representation of your soul. If you lose me, you might grieve a little bit, but you'll grieve more for yourself than you ever did me. You'll not see the importance of my life. You'll just say, oh my God, we'll get him next time. You can't beat yourself up on it. Oh, you were slipping this time. Oh, I failed them. No, you didn't fail them. You failed yourself. You had failed them the moment that you started this. Like, it doesn't talk about that as a moral failure. They say the ends justify the means. But that is exactly a white supremacist talking point and thinking. That's the true awful sight of these comics. But I've been going on long enough. With that being said, I'm done.